Good evening, friends and adventurers from all over. My name is David, and you are here with us for a night of literature with a society of main characters. Now, we do have a slightly smaller cast this evening as we delve into this month's wonderful literature offering, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. First, of course, our favorite paranormal pal, we have the one and only Keegan Cools.
Whoa, I'm so happy to be here. Very excited
Um,
to talk this book.
Fantastic. I'm happy to have you here. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very, very good. Better than they were doing at this part of the book, but we'll get there.
Yes, we will definitely get into that. It was a big part of it. And we do have a third guest because, three, the Triforce of wisdom, character, and everything is here tonight. We do have the one and only expert experiencer who is going to be lending us his literary uh, masterfulness tonight, and that is Mr. Nick. He seems to be
Oh, hi there.
okay. He was reading right now. Look at
I was
that.
experiencing literature.
You're quite a good experiencer from what I understand. That's why we have you here. How are you doing tonight, Nick?
Doing well.
Good.
Now,
Good.
Nick, before we do get started, as an expert experiencer, can you just enlighten us into a better vision of literature beings that we're trying to be?
Keegan, I would, but I find the best way to be an experiencer is to just experience things. So let's just jump right
That's
into it.
big words, big words. So, uh, definitely excited to bring you guys this book. I do think that Patrick Rothfuss is a very respected author. He has been, one of the bigger recent names, I think, in fantasy, even though we've all been waiting now for almost a decade for the last one. But we'll talk about that way later. Yeah, I guess we could do just a quick, just kind of a general what your thoughts were at first, and then we'll kind of dig into some specifics.
Well,
So,
David, actually, before we get
yeah,
to that, I just want to know obviously, you were the one who recommended it this month.
correct, yes.
So, why don't you just go back a little bit and talk about your first experience with this book and why you thought it'd be a good opportunity
Sure.
for us to read it.
So, I've always been big fantasy fan just in general, but I will have to say a lot of fantasy books actually don't speak to me the way that I wish the fantasy genre would. I feel like a lot of it is very formulaic, very you can tell where it's going, very kind of cookie cutter. Of course, we have the great who started it all off with Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and everything, and then a lot of fantasy from there onward almost felt like Lord of the Rings light. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people took a lot of the things he started there, kind of made them their own kind of things, but it's all very similar vein. So when you hear fantasy, it tends to either be the kind of epic sword and sorcery like Lord of the Rings esque, or it is also more modern day fantasy that takes place like New York City with magic, things like that, which is cool, but it is kind of its own. It's not just like 100% fantasy the way that you would consider it to be like Lord of the Rings, kind of that epic fantasy. Now, I've also always enjoyed things that kind of look at different angles of things, like the typical story, but kind of turned on its head. And somebody actually at a place that I used to work well over a decade ago, he actually suggested this to me. And he was not a guy that was much of a reader. Uh, he was somebody that I would not peg as, oh, he's definitely got a huge, library at home. So the fact that it had grabbed him enough that he really enjoyed it, I was like, this might be worthwhile. So I picked it up on his recommendation, just looking for something else to read. And it started just a little slow. I do think there's a lot of setup that you do have to get through. It's not bad. It's still very interesting, but it's not what I consider the heart of the story. Once you get to about 100 pages in, like, I think you're definitely hooked at that point. I kind of felt the same way with Game of Thrones. With the first book, it took me about 3 tries to actually get into that book. But somebody had told me then, they were like, look, get past like the first 100 pages to see if you're really into it or not. If you're not liking it after that, probably not your thing. But I did get into it. I loved it from that. It's just that kind of foundational thing. And I'm glad that I did, because there was so much that came into it that you learned from those early setups and things like that, including with this book, especially in the continuing story. But I really liked that it was kind of, in my opinion, when I talk about this book, I tell people it's kind of like the true Hollywood story of like the behind the scenes of like a famous like fantasy adventurer kind of thing. There is a lot of basically getting the true story of what happened behind like somebody who there is now legends about, that there's, you know, mythological stories around this character, but who is the actual guy behind the stories. So I liked that it was taking the angle of almost like an interview of finding out what was the real story behind the myths, who was the man behind the legends. So that was enough to get me hooked in there. And then once it really got started, I just couldn't put it down. And I feel like it's one of those books that every time I read it, I get something new out of it. I pick up on different things. And the way that Patrick Rothfuss writes, I do feel like he has a very distinct style in his characterizations and the voice that he uses. For example, and we'll get more into stuff like this, of course, but like with him and Denna, when they're talking, a lot of times the sentences that they share are 7 words. And that goes back to an earlier thing where they're talking about, you know, the 7 words that will make somebody fall in love with you. And a lot of their sentences back and forth in their conversations are 7 words exactly. And it's like, well, is that it? Is that, you know, just further teasing kind of their connection and their relationship to each other. So I like the little things like that. And after finishing it, I'm very glad that they do have a lot of the setup and everything that they do early on, because I feel like a lot of it does pay off in this story as you get going, but even more so in the next, like, continuing parts of it, more things keep coming up that if you didn't have that at the beginning, it wouldn't have nearly as much of a punch or make as much sense. So I had no problem with that. I don't mind them setting a good foundation as long as it pays off. I don't like it when they put a lot of stuff that's unnecessary, which some authors definitely do. I think they build up things and then it doesn't go anywhere, and that's very frustrating for the reader. But no, I think it's just a really great example of a more recent fantasy without having to go back like 50 years to something like that. Of course, you know, I grew up on Harry Potter and things like that. This almost feels like a more adult version of that kind of archetype of character, though I don't think Quoth is anywhere near as annoying as Harry got eventually in those books. And I also like that the main character does have flaws. Like, he straight up says himself that he is a very flawed person. He's got downfalls, and you see them repeatedly throughout the story. I mean, he does change and learn from things, but he still definitely has faults and flaws that, you know, spur the story onwards in some bits and kind of screw things up for himself in a couple of places. So I like reading about somebody that is, even though it's kind of a magical world and such, it is relatable with him. And speaking of magic, I also do like that it's not really like super magical of a world. I think this is one of the more scientific ways that I've ever seen a fantasy novel like approach the subject of magic and such. They actually do a really good way of kind of showing you what it is and explaining it, and it doesn't seem something that you're like, oh, so it's wand waving and spells, or like, no, it kind of makes a little scientific sense in there. So I thought that was pretty cool. I would say it's kind of in between a soft and a hard system for magic. So it's very, very interesting. And then naming, of course, goes into like actual like magic, but that's a little further down the road. But that was really cool too. I like the concepts, and he's definitely created a very enriching world and storylines in this, I think.
Nick, what did you think initially? Just kind of initial kickoff comments. What are you thinking?
Um, Initially, I will say I didn't hate this book. Um, it's not my favorite for sure. Like I was talking with a coworker who also has read it today. There's a lot of small things that really just kind of bugged me. Like, instead of using the word discomfort, Rothfuss uses discomfiture, and then instead of dangle, he uses dandle, which I don't know why, but all those tiny little things just got me. I did like David said, it was more of a scientific approach to magic for a lot of it. You know, it felt more like alchemy from like Full Metal Alchemist and stuff like that
It is kind of similar, yeah.
versus actual like magic like in Harry Potter. You know, I think there's no wands or anything in Name of the Wind, but I liked the approach to magic. Um, I do think uh, I liked the way the world kind of was set up. I didn't get too much from like outside of where the story took place. other than like some mentions of like other areas as well. And then I really actually enjoyed the setup to the end, like the ending set it up for the next book. I think really well. I haven't read the next book, um, but I think the ending was done really well. There's like David said, there's a lot of slow parts in this book for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't my initial thoughts are it was an all right book.
Something I forgot to mention that I this kind of goes along with the way that it's written. I really like all the descriptions and the ways that they talk about music. I think very few books ever put as much focus on that and really kind of delve into like what does music mean to the musician, to the person actually like that's their passion in their life, the way that it's different than how maybe us who are just casual music listeners or dare I say experiencers would
Oh,
think
yeah.
of it.
Well, then going off that too, I loved like when you told us about this book when we were reviewing the Project Hail Mary. It's the only fantasy story I've ever heard of where it's a bard, like a trooper
Yeah.
doing the adventuring, not like just like a hero.
And that kind of person isn't like just the side character or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like in The Witcher or something with
Yep.
Dandelion and yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I actually enjoyed that part of it. It was a good deal.
Okay, yeah, and I think that adds towards having again so much of that just like a unique viewpoint of something that's been done thousands upon thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Keegan.
about you, Keegan? What were your initial kickoff thoughts?
I mean, for you, nothing too groundbreaking because I've told you a lot of my initial thoughts. But for the audience, it did settle in, at least for me, a little over 100 pages. I would say the first couple hundred, and I know there's people that love that part the most. But just going about all the different stories and being very kind of loosely tied together was just,
It's not my thing.
yeah, it's not my thing either.
Even this is one of my favorite books ever. Whenever I reread it, I pretty much skip to his time at the university.
Yeah, once it, even for me, but a little bit before that, when he's just in the city, and like I told you, kind of reminded me of like an old timey, like grimy London type of city.
It felt like a Charles Dickens kind of like
Yeah,
atmosphere. Yeah, like an Oliver
yeah,
Twist.
yeah. But like you said, once we get into university and all that starts going, it definitely settled for me a lot better. And that's when I really started to get into it, like really kind of wanting to know more what would happen. And like
Right.
you guys have said, it really leaves off in a good kind of cliffhanger. Not like you see in like some movies where it's like, whoa, like that happened, but you're like, I wonder where so and so happened. And we know some of the story because we've kind of gone at the beginning, but at the same time, we're like, well, he's kind of an unreliable narrator. Like he's telling it himself. And
But
at the
how much of
beginning,
that is like accurate?
yeah, and at the beginning, he said the best lies were the ones he told. So
Mhm.
you're like, is any of this, I mean, I think most of it is, but yeah, I think it's good. And the writing style, I think, was really good because there's a lot of times I did catch myself and I could hear the sounds or like see things really vividly. So I think writing was a really strong point of this one for sure.
I think so, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. The writing was really good. I mean, I this is the first book I've ever read where I actually had a smile on my face as I was reading a chapter, and that was
Nice.
the chapter. That was the chapter where he was in the university showing up, Master Hemi or
Oh, with
whatever.
the hot foot and everything?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that chapter and I was like, "Way to go!"
Got him.
I actually enjoyed that quite a bit.
When I think a lot of the writing too, I mean, it has to speak to it because there was points and like David says he has his faults, obviously, and there's points you're like, come on, don't do it. We know what's gonna like, don't. It's stupid, and he does it, and you're like, I knew this was gonna happen. But
It's
like,
like don't do it, but
yeah, you almost feel irritated at him, but at the same
A
time, I
little,
think you can
little
relate
bit.
because we've all been like young and stupid and feel like you're invincible,
I mean,
So I get it.
I related to it just because I went to a university as well. Like, oh, I remember the university campus. Like, I wonder what his campus was like.
yeah.
But then, like, yeah, getting irritated with him towards the second part where the university part of about how he wants to sneak into the archives.
Yeah,
And
so
it's like,
bad, and he just
it's
keeps
like,
like messing
dude,
up his
And
life.
it's like,
with it.
bro, just stop. Just
stop.
be chill.
Yeah, take a chill pill and relax a bit. Like,
Especially when everybody else is telling him that same thing. Just like, don't worry, it'll be fine. Just calm down.
just give it some time. Give it some time. And he's like, no, time's the thing I don't have. It's like, what? Yes, you do.
Yeah, because how old is he again in this? He's like
15.
14?
Like 15,
15.
16. Yeah,
Okay.
he like
Yep.
because he gets admitted like right before I think turning 16, and then I think he goes into 16 by like the end of this book.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still young. He's got plenty of time. He's got so much going on. Like he messes things up for himself quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Well,
not
then
good with talking with women, we'll say that. Or
Well,
reading the signs.
Yeah, that's true. But then I also think, and this is my thought on this. I felt like there are certain situations that where he was just flat out treated unfairly.
Oh yeah.
Like whenever he had to go in front of the masters between when there was an altercation between him and Ambrose,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like
for the song and stuff.
Yeah, for the song and stuff, it's like well, all he did was write a song. He didn't physically harm the guy. Like, why are you punishing him? Or the later part where Ambrose breaks his lute. It's like,
yeah, I like how
why-
they're trying to say like, oh, you can't steal it and break it. It's like, bitch, yes, you can.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that was a weird argument. And obviously that teacher is the one, or professor is the one that has like grievances with him.
Right.
Mhm.
Because of, I mean, even before the Hotfoot incident, but like he's had like his number the whole time.
Right, that's true. But even in that situation, there's other masters who are just voting along. Like, yeah, we can go ahead and punish him. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he still
No.
gets his whips, even though he
Even though
yeah,
he
even
didn't.
though, like, okay,
did
we
nothing
proved
wrong.
it happened, but still got to get you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
can
just-
definitely prove he broke your stuff, but you know what? You might have called the wind, so we're gonna whip you out.
You called the
hurt
name of the
him.
wind, which is the title of the book. We're not going to roll credits because that's not how books work. But yeah, you did it.
They said the title. Oh my god. I thought that was really interesting too. How it's like, I don't quite remember what all gets into it from there, but I think it is very clear that the university used to be a place that was basically like the number one thing they tried to teach people was naming.
Like
And
it gets into that like towards the very like
right,
after
and that it's
is-
kind of, and then it's kind of gotten like distilled back from that of what that used to be the primary focus.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's Master Kilvin who was like, yeah, we used to have this secret people.
Oh,
We called them
right,
we called them the Raylar or whatever.
right, and then the Relar is like the next level up that Kavoth gets at the end, right? Or
Yeah, he
quote.
gets promoted.
So, how did y'all pronounce his name personally, like yourselves?
Quoth.
I
Quoth?
called him Coat the whole time.
Called him Quoth.
I mean that's where he went by as the innkeeper. No, I was like Kvoth.
So I thought I've always said Kavoth, but I believe it's actually Quoth.
Quoth.
See, and
I
it
would
was
not
funny.
have guessed that. Yeah.
And it's funny because I talked to Keegan about this. I didn't do any outside research or anything. I didn't look.
No,
this book
that's
up
good. It's better if you don't.
until I finished the last page, and then I went and watched 3 videos on it.
And you heard him say like Quoth.
Well, I heard one guy say Quoth, and then he was like, it was a guy who he did not like the book. He gave it I think 3 out of 5 stars.
So about mediocre, yeah.
Yeah, a mediocre. But he was talking about, he's like, I can't believe that this is like a passionate argument in the fan base. Like people
how to say
will
it.
passionately defend how to say it, and it's like,
I mean, all you got to do is go watch one of Rothfuss's talks, and he says it.
oh yeah.
And personally, I go with whatever I mean, even if he was wrong, like, hey, if that's how he says it, that's it.
Yep. If that's how the author says it, that's how you say it.
In my head, I still say Kavoth.
That's how I read it. I was
But
like,
I know
that
it's
makes
not.
sense.
I know it's like quote, but with like a W, so it's Quoth, and that's what Rothfuss says is something like that. But I personally, when I first read it, again, I didn't look at anything either till I'd read it, and I was like, okay, Kavoth, yeah, let's go.
I just think the character's name is just the most annoying name in the entire story.
Yeah, it was like
There's
what,
nobody
what,
like
what
you have
weird thing.
you have Denna, Willem, Simon,
Yeah,
Kilvin. It's like all these names are super easy to pronounce, and then you have the main character. It's like
Ari, like
I
that's
think that
easy.
kind of goes into
yeah,
like the
Ari,
fantasy
super
trope,
easy.
because like a
Hella,
lot of like really big fantasy novels, once you get like I would say more adult fantasy novels, they have the weirdest names, and I think
Yeah,
that's
just for
why I've
no
like
reason. They're just
yeah,
like
that's
Kusakakua.
yeah, and that's why I'm like
What?
it's so hard for me to read fantasy novels like those. I mean, I'll read them, but at the same time, I just feel
I
irritated
feel
because I'm
like a
like, I
lot
don't
of
know who that is.
fantasy, they go out of their way to be like, remember, this isn't our world. It's
yeah,
weird. And it's like,
yeah,
why? Why? Why can't you just call her Susan?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, we discussed one fantasy novel that definitely made you think it was a weird world.
Yeah.
Whew.
And I will say, I also think that he does a very good representation of poverty
Oh, in the city
because
part,
he
yeah.
just quotes like life.
Mhm.
Like
I
it is very like this is a
eh,
poor person. I think it goes overboard from what we would do because he's basically homeless for forever. Like he's just a
yeah,
street person.
yeah.
I
No,
think that was probably a pretty good example.
the only part of him being poor that got annoying was his repeated woes about not being able to afford tuition.
That's like a constant struggle.
It is, and it's a constant struggle for every student that's ever attended a university, but you don't hear them bitching about it every single semester.
Well, that's because from what it sounds like, everybody else that's there at the university seems to be some level of uh, just
Not
Wealthy,
better
they
poor,
have
off.
money.
not
Yeah,
Yeah,
homeless.
they all seem to come from either families of like high esteem. Because even like Simon, like his dad is a duke,
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and I
and
understand
yeah,
that part of it. I understand that. I'm just saying, for me as the reader, it got annoying hearing him complain all the time
oh yeah,
about
he
it.
definitely. But I have to say, I'm kind of glad because I personally think Devi is a fantastic character. The one that he gets the money from and stuff.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love her.
Yep, she was a fun character. I did laugh at the end when he was talking about meeting up with Fila
Mhm.
and how she was like naked underneath her blanket, and she's like, "Do you want to come in?" I was like, "Yeah." If me at 16, I would have been like, "Yeah, I'm coming in that room."
Right? They're like, don't worry about what I came here for. Let's go in. Let's
Yeah, no, I don't care about getting into the archives. How about you archive this? Anyway,
so let's see. So she would be like he's 16, so she was probably about like a hot 20-year-old or something, right? Like 19, 20.
17, 18,
Yeah,
19.
like standing there naked with just like the sheet barely on her and like her silhouette. Like, come on.
Come on, come on.
Come on. Come on.
Well, why don't we get into the love interest? Because that's kind of what we've kind of like moved over to as far as topic here. There's a lot of women in here, and I know this is hot and contentious with the fan base as far as Dina, right?
Denna.
Denna.
Down, yeah.
See, there's another one. I'm just saying it wrong. Here we go.
That
So,
could be
I,
that
I
could be
don't
one
know.
of
I
her
don't.
names. Then. She
I
does
don't know
change.
how you're. I don't know how you're not pronouncing it correctly though, because it's Denna.
Yeah, that was a pretty basic one out of all the names to
Out of all the basic names, you decided to screw up that one.
and then I think her fake name for a while was like Dinah. Like it's always some variation.
Dinah,
Yeah.
Diane.
Yeah, she has like 3 or 4 that we get told throughout the little
Mhm.
bits. Like, okay, so what is her job? Does she have a job?
She's not. No, her job is to find a suitor.
So, okay, this kind of goes into because they talk about it a little bit further in book 2. It is kind of a big point of contention. Basically, Denna survives by being, amorous with guys, and then when they push to want too much from her, she bolts. So she's kind of a tease. Is kind of what I gathered from it. Um, she kind of takes advantage of guys and like lets them court her and give her expensive things that she can sell later to have money for food and whatnot. It's kind of like Quoth, but in a different way. Like they're very similar characters if you really look at their difference. It's just that he's stuck with his past and like studying magic stuff, and she's just trying to find something she can do that wouldn't make her have to go do something she doesn't want to do. I believe this conversation is in book 2, but it is Den, the count that he meets at the tavern and everything. he like they have a conversation. I think it's him. It's either him or maybe Stanchion, but they're talking about how women only have very limited options for what
Nope,
they can actually do.
that's in book
Is it
one.
book one? Okay. So yeah, so I mean it's either, she's either gonna be like a housemaid for somebody, and then still probably get taken advantage of by the husband or master of the house. So she'd still have to be like, raped by him basically to keep her job. Uh she could get married and just have somebody take care of her, but then she'd have to, it would be at
But
his will.
she has no dowry.
Yeah. So anybody that wants her, she's basically fully at his will to do whatever he wants her to do. Um, and that's about it. Like she can learn a simple trade like sewing or something and make almost nothing and just be like a spinster. But the options for a young woman in that world, I guess, versus a man, which is very similar to like here in the past, I would assume.
Yeah.
Men have all the options. Like Quoth can go out and make his anything of his life basically except becoming like a royal. That's about the only thing that he couldn't, and even that he could maybe achieve if he married the right woman or whatever. But as far as
or saved like the kingdom or something, yeah.
exactly right, like there's just so many more options for a man, whereas Denna is just trying to. Because I mean, Quoth could easily have gone off and just been a traveling like bard, like a trooper, like his parents were, and that could be his life, and he'd probably be okay at it. But Denna couldn't be on the road by herself. She'd get robbed, raped, killed, whatever, probably pretty quickly if she's just a single woman on her own trying to travel. So I think it's just that she's basically trying to make do with whatever, and it's kind of morally gray because it's kind of, but she's not forcing these guys to give her things and take her out. So I guess it's the equivalent of being on Hinge and like going on dates for the free food, like agreeing to dinners and then ghosting.
Yeah, very much like modern dating.
That's basically her life. She's not, as far as we've never seen her have any profession beyond trying to get this patron to help her with music.
And I will say that was one of the things that kind of endeared me to Quoth more, because I've known girls like that when I was in high school and in not so much college, because I was only dating the one person throughout college. But I knew girls that I would go after and who would just string me along because I was doing nice things.
Okay, so since we're talking about love lives, with you guys have only reading the first one, I would love to know: do you feel like she's stringing him along,
Yes.
or do you think she genuinely cares about him?
I think she genuinely cares.
I think it's mixed.
Yeah, I will say that. I say it's mixed. I think she genuinely cares, but she's again trying to pursue a better life for herself, and she doesn't see that she might be able to get that from Quoth.
Now,
She doesn't see that.
some people bring up is if you reversed this story and you were reading it from Denna's point of view, does it seem like Quoth possibly does the exact same things that she does, but does it to her?
Not necessarily, because you don't ever see Quoth with other women around her. There's only one moment where you see it.
Well,
You
except
see her,
with Fila when he's getting the cloak or whatever, but
when
that's
he's
not
getting the
like,
cloak from Fila after saving her life. But
right.
again, you see Denna with a lot more suitors than you see.
Because
even
that's
the one guy at the tavern, yeah.
Quoth, well, not just the one guy. It's mentioned at the end of the book that he kept running into her, and he kept seeing her with other
just
guys.
random guys like, oh, we're late for our riding appointment or all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And he just gave him the look like, I know her a lot more than you do, but I'm not gonna step on your toes.
Right. But
And then when she breaks your heart or when you break hers, I'm gonna be right here.
Right. So, but do you feel that like the way that he acts with her and, from her point of view, that she couldn't justify giving up her livelihood basically to pin it all on being with him?
Well,
No,
I think she still wants to get the patron, and he
Again,
doesn't
yeah.
have that thing to offer.
He doesn't have
Right.
the wealth.
something.
He doesn't have the wealth and background that the other suitors do.
Right. Because he can't even take care of himself.
He has one clean shirt for majority of the story.
And sometimes he doesn't even have shoes.
There's a
He's
good
just
chunk of
walking
the
around
story
with
where
it,
he
yeah.
doesn't have shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that they equally are crazy about each other and just won't outright say it.
See, I
And
don't.
I think the biggest evidence of that was when she's delirious and the things she's saying when she's like super high on the resin.
Yeah. Nope. I absolutely agree.
Because I think that was her talking unfiltered and saying the things that she's grown to like. Because I think she also has grown the kind of the way that Quoth has grown up, on the streets and having the trouble that he had. I think on hers, it was she can never become attached to somebody. I think that she's had a lot of issues with that and men trying to control her. And I think she's just naturally going to be suspicious of anybody, no matter what kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I think
without the resin.
I think there's a couple of scenarios, especially the one where you were describing, where had Quoth just said how he felt about her, boom, the relationship would have bloomed and happened.
See, and that's why I think that's some of those places where I think that he's making a mistake when he like just won't tell her things or something. Like he's terrible at communicating.
He has a lot of pride for someone who hasn't earned it, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. And I get that they're trying to say, like, he even mentions, he's like, when you're dirt poor, all you have is your pride or whatever. So that's why it's like so important to him. But dude, like, there's so many things where he could have just been like, hey, Simon, can I borrow a couple pennies? Problem solved.
Yeah, instead he goes in debt.
He's quite literally. Like, hey, like, I don't want to tell people that I have no money, and like, but you have friends, like you said, one of your friends is heir to a duke.
Yeah, like even if they're not a rich duke, that's still enough that he could be like, hey, here's a couple bucks, man.
Hey, or like go to him and be like, hey, I'll come clean for you or whatever if you just help me out with my tuition.
Like, hey, do you want to learn how to play lute? I'll teach you. I'll do lessons. Like, he could have done that. He could have put up a flyer in the Aeolian and be like, hey, you want to learn to play from a talented musician? I'll be here every weekend on Saturdays. Come and take lessons.
Then even then, going off that, he at one point has a job just performing. Like, as someone who is a musician and wanted to be that kind of thing, I would have taken that.
Oh yeah, like he had a great gig before Ambrose took him away from that end. But even at Anchors, like he still gets free room and board just for playing a couple nights a week.
Even at Anchors, because even at Anchors, they're like, yeah, I don't care what that rich guy over there has to say about you.
Yeah, he's like, fuck him, let's go.
if you can play and entertain people, what do I care? But again, like that's another thing too. Again, going off of the Quoth being treated unfairly. Why did he not bring up the fact that Ambrose drove him out of a job?
Because he couldn't technically prove it.
Well, I understand he couldn't technically prove it, but he could have at least implied it, and then maybe brought it up, and then like they would have been like, "Hey, Ambrose, is this true? Like, did you actually do something?"
He's like, no.
Versus he doesn't say anything, and then they side with Ambrose anyway.
Or like he literally hired two guys to kill him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which it is confirmed in the next book that basically it was Ambrose that did it.
I kind of figured it try to play it off like it may or may not be him, but just the way Ambrose was acting, I was like, yeah, it's definitely
Quoth gets some confirmation later on, like further into that it was almost certainly them.
That is the one thing that I found a little annoying about this, is because it's setting up an entire trilogy. So I understand that Rothfuss doesn't want to tie every end loose, every loose end just yet. But it's like towards the end, I'm like, I have a couple of chapters left, and he's like, I will later find out. It's like, why can't I just
why can't I do it now?
I'm like, why can't you just leave that out and then bring it up in the next book instead of just being like, oh, I'll find that out much later.
Well, from what I've heard, is he wrote the entire like story and then broke it up into 3.
Which I'd believe it if it wasn't for the fact that we've been waiting for the last book for like 10 years.
I was just going to say that.
I've been seeing the comments on that.
As much as I love his story, his writing and everything, I think what happened is, especially after you read the second book, I think he's weaved so much into these books and so much that needs to come to a fruition like in the third one that he got stuck of how to do it. Like, I think there was so many dangling that he was like, well, I have to do this. I have to have this. This has to come together. I've already said this. So this has to, you know what I mean? I think that that's possibly what's happened and why it's been so long. But supposedly, like, there's a rough draft out there that people have read. There's several drafts that have done. So this could be the year.
The year
I saw that he
Chronicles, right?
He has read. I did see that he has read some of his transcript on like live streams.
He's talked about it. It's a whole fiasco. They did like a charity thing where if they made X amount given, he was going to post a chapter from the third book online, and they hit the goal. It's been over a year and he still hasn't posted it.
It's a
Yep.
Game of
So
Thrones
again,
type of thing.
that's another thing I have to throw against Keegan. I would not believe that he broke it all into 3 if they were
Yeah.
still waiting on one
Now
chapter.
he
One
definitely
chapter.
could have had. I would believe that he'd had maybe an overarching like 3. Like this is
Yeah,
the
like his
business of it.
story, and then he
Is
broke it up,
not
and then because he's
I know.
gone back
right,
and
and
really
then
giving
didn't
you-
fill
built
it
the
in.
world.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not. The reason why I'm being so harsh against you, Keegan, is because I'm the master experiencer here, and I haven't experienced this yet.
So
You know,
we've got to give it
brought
to
up
him.
a
No,
fair point.
Keegan,
You are
Keegan,
an
he's right.
experiencer,
That's
so
right. He has not experienced this
I
yet.
apologize. I did not mean to speak out of terms, Nick. Apology.
Okay, so out of what you guys know so far, for love interest, the ones you've seen, if it was you, who would you date?
Fila.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same
Fila.
one.
I think, yeah.
Fila's so. I will say Denna is the one I'd want to go for, but knowing myself that I've been in that situation already, in like with several women, yeah, no, that's not a good situation to be pining for
Like
someone
it
who
kind of
doesn't
feels like
pine back.
to put it in like today's terms, it feels like Denna is like the hot manic pixie dream girl who is like, it's intoxicating being around her, but she's so fucking crazy kind of thing,
Well, you know what they say about the crazy ones.
Well,
and
and what we know
Fila
is just
like,
from his point of view, though, because Bass brought up like all these like issues he had with her.
yeah.
And he's like, actually, she didn't look that beautiful.
He was like, yeah, her ears weren't really centered.
And
Like
her nose was kind of crooked. Like,
oh no,
she had
he said her
she
ears
had one
were
eyeball
different.
in the middle of her mouth. Like, nah.
And then Fila kind of feels like the like quiet, smart, like really hot girl next door kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep, that's what I'd want to go for.
And she's basically throwing herself at him.
Again, being practically naked. Like, you want to come in my room?
And like, oh my,
And he's like, nah, I'm gonna go chase after this other girl real quick.
I think as soon as he saved her life, he was in.
Oh yeah.
I think she was like 100%. This is my guy.
He's even in with Ari. I would argue too. Ari's
honestly
all about him.
If Ari wasn't crazy, like if there wasn't like something like wrong with her, not a terrible option. She seems like more fun than
it also doesn't help that she's homeless. She
lives
can't
in like
smell
the underworld.
Hey,
yeah, she lives in the gutters, in the sewers.
Like the same way we said that like Dinah couldn't pick him because he can't take care of her. It's a step up for Ari.
Hey, she gets bread.
Or even then,
She's happy with the simplest of gifts.
Yeah,
like he brings her an apple and she's like, "Ooh, delightful."
Play for me again. Play the music.
Or even then, I do like the chemistry between Quoth and Devi.
Like all three of them are better options. I think. I guess the biggest thing about Denna though is she does feel like Quoth's equal, basically.
Well, yeah, they both. You get the sense that they both came from hard times.
Right, but they also seem like she's probably wicked intelligent. She seems very smart. She's just as kind. Like I think she probably lies just as well as Quoth does. Like they both seem very into that. Like I can tell you anything I want and you're gonna believe it. I
would agree with that, especially when they both meet the farmer.
Oh yeah, the pig herder guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Like they slip right into that.
And she's like, I don't know that accent that well. And then like he speaks, and then afterwards she's like, I could have picked it up. It's like, then fucking do it.
Or when he explains like why he's up there, and she's like, "That's bullshit." The first time, when he tells his like well-crafted story of like, "Oh yeah, the masters made me come up here because they heard And she's like, "Oh okay, well if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to, but don't tell me bullshit."
And again, that's another area where had he just said the truth.
That's my biggest problem. That whole time he was with her there, he should have said, "Look, I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, but this is
But
what
I'm
happened when
crazy
I
for
was,
you.
or just be like, well, no, just be like, this is what happened to me as a kid. That's why I was asking about the blue flag, like why I'm here. And I know it's difficult. Like I couldn't believe it either, but look at what happened here. That was probably the closest he'd ever get to somebody believing him,
Mm-hmm.
like without
And
having to have other proof.
it'd be the closest he'd get to like having a true friend. He
Yeah.
has friends in like Willem and Simon, but they don't. He holds them all at like an
See,
arm's
not only
length.
that, but yeah, but he probably could tell Willem and Simon what happened, and to
Absolutely.
some degree they would believe him.
Mhm.
I would
Even if
even
it,
say he could
even
tell Master Kilvin.
yeah, like he or you tell me he couldn't tell that to Eladin? Like that dude's crazy already. If anybody's gonna believe you, why not him?
Would you jump off a building, David?
Yeah,
I did. I did think. I thought that part was
I thought
incredibly.
the same. I thought the same thing. I thought with the story that we'd already heard several times and all, I was like, oh, this guy knows the name of the wind. It's like a test. He'll save him. But I think it's great that he's like, wow, you're dumb.
Yeah, I like that part. He was like, I've never seen someone do something so stupid. And you're like, okay, okay.
Yeah, that part for me was such a like. It was a purposeful letdown because it was diverting your expectations because like you just said, we've seen plenty of stories where it's like, oh, like even as I was reading it, like he's just gonna say the name of the wind and he's gonna sweep him off
And be
his
like,
feet.
okay, our training starts today, or something like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
nope.
no, it's like, ow, that sucks. Anyway, bye.
Okay, what about scenario 2? This guy doesn't really like you. He lets you go in the archives, but he wants you to hold a candle. Would you do it?
I mean, not now
That's
knowing what I
another
know.
scenario. Again, Ambrose should have gotten in trouble for that one because he had definitive proof. He
Well,
sold
okay.
me the candle.
But he doesn't have proof. No, because he doesn't have proof that he
He
didn't
doesn't have
sneak
like a
in
receipt or
and
something.
light
Yeah.
his own candle. But I understand why they would believe him just because Ambrose has been there for years and is like a scribe there and everything. Like I get that one. But Ambrose is just fucking like I hate him.
He's a douche.
Dude, he gets even worse in the next book.
Well, what is the fee he tricks to? What was that called?
A stacks fee.
Stacks fee, yeah, where he's like,
and he takes a whole
don't
talent
you
from him.
know? Yeah. Just so many times you're like, yo, you had the money and you're just like, I'm gonna buy this. Or yeah, this is like a good idea. You're like, no, hold on to your money. You don't need to go in there. You're fine.
Yeah, the best time that he spent a talent was when he played at the Elodian or whatever.
Oh, to get his pipes.
Yeah.
Yolian, yep.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing where it's like, what that guy has his pipes, man.
Dude, if I was
a
broke
good
like
scene.
that, if I was broke like that though, I would be playing at the Aeolian every night.
Yep.
If I was making money off drinks and stuff, like even if I couldn't get like real like a patron, I'd be there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not. He's spending his time looking for dinner.
Well, and trying to get into the archives mainly.
Yes. Which by the end he does accomplish.
Yeah, and then he sneaks into the one and she like helps him and then he's like, oh, it was me all along. I was here.
I did think it was funny. I did think it was funny too how she mentions like, oh, we usually keep these rooms empty just in case like people are
having sex.
People having sex. And I'm like, I thought back to my days at UNC up in Greeley, and on like UNC's Facebook page, so many people were posting about having sex in the library. I was like, where? But where?
But especially if they had lots of little hidden rooms like this one does.
Underground in the dark. Yeah.
All the time people would be.
There's not the rooms at UNC's main library are not hidden. Okay. They are in the middle of the building. You just go upstairs and then like they're still in the middle. And I'm like,
yeah, the way that I get like I kind of felt like the archives, it kind of sounded like a catacomb almost situation.
Oh yeah.
With just tons like
like the London Underground or the Paris Underground. Yeah.
Where there's just like tunnels upon tunnels. And I just imagine that there's like these like shut little cubbyhole rooms with like a little study looking up like a table and some chairs. And I was like, oh yeah, I bet. And of course she said that because she was like, hey, people have sex in here. What are you doing?
Yeah. Do you want to come?
Like, I'm gonna read.
Do you want to come in my room?
Here, you want to help me? Do you want to check my nook? Yeah, dude, that poor girl. Like she's said so many times of how gorgeous she is, and like she
Mhm.
seems so sweet and nice, and like she wants it, and he's just
He's
like,
focused on the
okay,
wrong
okay,
girl.
thanks for the book. I gotta go.
He's
I
focused
also
on the
like
wrong girl.
how like disappointed everyone is when he's like he tells them the book that they want and they're like, here's your little fairy tale, and they just like wing it over to him.
Here, peasant.
Yeah, see, if he said he was homeless, they'd be like, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, look, you're reading this fairy tales, that's all you're interested in.
We didn't know he could read.
And now he calls the wind. What is that?
But yeah, I think it's interesting, and I do think it's really funny that like that's the one thing he wanted, and basically day one he just fucking ruins it for
Messed it
himself.
up right away. Yeah. And he
Well,
goes in
and
right after he got whipped too, and it's like, dude, just go back. Like you're already on like some drugs.
Yeah, you already know
So,
you
like,
hate this guy. Like this
that's
guy is not a fan of you. He could just say, "Nope, you can't get it." And be like, "All right, I'll try again when Willem's up here." You know, or
that's
something like that.
that was another thing. As I was reading it, I was like, dude, just turn back. Like he's like, he's like, the drugs I took, well, that whipping did not hurt me. They're about to make me delusionally tired, and it's
Like
like,
just go to bed.
yeah, go find it. Yeah, go to the dorms. Just go to bed real quick, and then come back afterwards. But he's like, nope, I gotta find it now. It's like, you idiot.
Yeah, he has no patience.
Nope.
He is very instinctual, just gut reaction. I'm gonna do this, and then does it. He's like a puppy.
And there's one part, I will say, there is one part of the book where that really actually does him a favor, and that was when he killed the dragon.
Yeah, that
Because
I mean,
he just thought instinctually right there. He set Denna up to not fall, and then he took off.
because he had to save the whole town of ignorant farmers.
though it was his fault that the
That it
large
was there to begin
lizard
with.
wandered into the
We don't need to talk about that. Okay, it's fine.
And I love that they have like such like if they could have kept all that resin and everything and the body, like they could have had so much money, and him and Denna could have been like happy together with so much, and it just nope, ruined everything.
Oh my!
It's
I was
just
like,
like
poor guy.
any plans he ever makes, they just explode. It always sets him back to like square one.
well, it
Again.
always ends up like there's always these times like you're like, okay, he's gonna go on this like actual date fire. Or like you said, like had they just been able to kill it with a little bit of the resin, they would have had the resin, they would have had the body. But then he kept doubling it, and then it goes into the city, and then and then she's gone, and it's just like a mess.
He just
And
loses it all.
yeah, the building collapses, he's out again. So
And honestly, at the end of this, he has almost no further information about the Chandrian.
That was the no. So like you mentioned earlier about how certain things not paying off can kind of irritate the reader. I was thinking about that the entire time. I was like, where's the Chandrian? There's like very little mention of it, and it doesn't really pay off at the end.
So it definitely like that's just driving what he's doing in the whole books. The next one, it keeps going with it. And I will say that there is stuff from his trip to Tribon or whatever, that he does get a little more information from being out there that he wouldn't have gotten if he wouldn't have been out there.
Mm-hmm.
That'll help him out, but you don't see it till the next book. But he does get some stuff. I mean, I'll tell you, it's not a huge spoiler. Basically, you know the girl that he talks to, Nina, that saw the hidden item or whatever that the guy's son showed her, and then they all died, but she like had seen it.
Oh yeah.
in the wedding, yeah.
Right, she has like a dream and such where she's able to actually remember the drawings on the pot. It's like a piece of pottery that shows the Chandrian and their signs and like who they are and everything. And she actually gets quote like a copy of it that she like draws out.
That's in the next book.
Yeah, so he gets a little more information and stuff from that, which I guess was at least something from it.
How long is the next book?
It's longer than this one.
That's not what I asked, but thank you.
I think it's about 1,000. Let me check real quick. I mean, personally, I like people argue, okay, because all right, I'm not gonna go into detail, but one thing that really rubbed people the wrong way in the next one, there is a certain part where things happen, and Quoth basically becomes a sex god, and people are like, that's such a Mary Sue thing. The author just wanted him to be cool.
I mean, it is a fantasy novel, so you expect that at some point.
I mean,
And even then, it's every man's fantasy to be a sex symbol. Like, what man would not want to be viewed as the ultimate
okay,
sexy thing?
so Wise Man's Fear, in at least
Is
in hardback.
994.
Yep. So it's about 1,000
I
pages.
googled it. Yep.
Personally, I like the next one more, but you can't have the next one without having read this one.
Yeah.
Like, you can't at all. There's so, like, it is very, very, it's not one of those books that you can just like kind of skip one and still be okay. You would have no fucking clue what's going on. They don't really rehash anything. They just jump straight back into it. So you've got to read Name of the Wind to get to this one. And personally, I like where this one goes. Only about half of it's at the university. But he's still not expelled from the university by the end of the book.
Maybe he didn't get expelled.
They've said several times that he does, but I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. But
Maybe that's just a lie.
Maybe
Well, what if he gets
that's-
expelled? Like he becomes like, because how old is he in the modern time?
I think he's like 25, 26.
Oh, okay, so it's not that much of a time
No,
jump.
hang on. When he's telling the
He's
story,
still very young. Yeah,
when he's
he's
telling,
not.
I thought he was in like his 30s. I thought it mentions he's like 32 or something like that.
I thought he was 112, but
he's all right. He's like our age or younger.
Okay, we don't know anymore.
Yeah, because they mention it a little bit about his age later on. I think it's in the second one when somebody's talking to him about it. He's like, you act all, but you're still a young guy too. You shouldn't be doing all. You should be out chasing women and all this. And he's
okay.
like,
So speaking on that, Bast, what he like is very emotionally attached to him.
I have a feeling we're not going to know more about Bast until book
and he
2.
like cries at all the stories, but then he wants to murder the Chronicle. He's like, "You're going to do what I'm going to see." You know, I was like, "What the hell's going on?"
Bast's number one goal is to get Quoth to remember who he is, to want to be that person again, and not this innkeeper that's hiding away.
Yeah, because he's like his teacher.
Sure.
Teacher, apprentice.
Your guess is there's a lot of theories of who Bast could be in relation to Quoth or why they're together.
I've seen.
I'm guessing based off of what you're saying and your tone, I'm guessing it's still just theories.
Yes,
even after book
there's
2.
There's more in book 2, but it a lot of it has not focused yet on the present day. It's still telling the story. So
what about like the spin-offs?
So the spin-offs, one of them is all about Ari, and it takes place during book 2. It is it's when Quoth is not at the university, and it's basically things that happen to her while he's gone. So that's like her life of what's going on, like living in the underthing and all that. The other one is a story that's all about Bast and basically an average day in Bast's life of what he does. And it incorporates a little more like fairy lore and like fae magic and stuff. And he like makes deals with kids at a tree and all this, like the village kids.
Is that before or during his time with Quoth?
He's already with Quoth.
Okay.
It happens.
And he has hooves, correct?
No, they don't see him as that he is like a glamour. Everybody else sees
without the glamour.
Without it, yes.
Okay. That's what I thought, but then I couldn't remember.
Because he's from the Fae realm.
Yeah.
Which we do learn a lot more about that in the next book.
Okay.
Not Bast, but the Fae realm and Fae in general. You've actually already heard about one that will become a very big part of book 2.
Okay.
But there's like Nick, you mentioned that you hadn't seen a lot of the world. Book 2 changes that a lot. He gets very far from the university for probably about half the book.
Well, yeah, because like even as I was getting towards the end, I was like, I was like, wait, this book had a map of the world too, right?
Yeah, at the beginning kind of looked like Europe in a way.
Yeah, kind
of does look like Europe, but no,
he goes very far.
I don't remember where the story starts, but I do like Tarbine, Imre, the university,
And that's
all like
basically the only places you hear about except Tribon later on.
yeah, Trayvon later on, but even then, that's not even
Like, I don't think it's a
not
different
highlighted.
continent, but it's very like he has to take a ship to get to the next place he goes and starts his next adventures.
Yep. But yeah, so like it's just like looking at the map here, for those that are watching at home or whatever, it's majority of it is right
Like right there in the middle. Yeah.
right there. The majority of the story is just right there.
Yeah. So it's I personally I love, like I said, I like the next one more. I like a lot more of the characters introduced. I like seeing more of the world and like how things work, and it builds his reputation a lot more as like a hero slash adventurer kind of thing with all the stuff that happens. So I think it's interesting. Um, but yeah, it's really good. It adds a lot more depth to the characters we've already seen too. I think that's also another reason why I like the university section starting there onward better, because we actually have recurring characters and people,
Yeah.
they're able to grow and change and actually affect his life. Whereas in Tarbine, it's just survival.
It's survival, and then before that's just kind of like random
Yeah.
mythology and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't care for like the stories from Scarpy and the guy taking care of the homeless kids in the basement and all. Like, okay. I get that
The
they had
one
to
kid
fit it
was
in
like
there,
tied
but
down to the bed, and it's all like
yeah,
damp and wet. Yeah.
exactly.
Weird
So
imagery.
that it's just, yeah, it's not. It was. I mean, I didn't mind getting through it the first time, and then I reread it again before this just to be refreshed on that parts. But I remembered why I'm like, this is why I don't read this part very often. Like, I know the story, and that's enough. I don't need to like have those again. Nothing has come up that I've been like, oh yeah, that's just like the story that one guy told. Like, just not my thing.
Well, and then going off that, for me, I felt like the majority of the book really picked up and grabbed my attention more after he got to the university.
Exactly. That's what I agree. From the moment he gets there, when he's like spying on the interviews and then has his first interview and everything, that's when I think it becomes the most interesting. Like from there onwards, fantastic book. The parts before that, though, I am very intrigued, like because it does set up a lot in like before he starts telling the story, like the Scrael, those big like spider things.
Mhm.
Like, why is this quote's fault that they're here? Where are they coming from? Like, what's happening in the present day that he caused? I mean, obviously, he killed a king at some point.
At some point in book 3.
And that caused something. Yeah. So
Ambrose is gonna become a king.
no, people, that is a very strong theory that it's Ambrose, because it's mentioned several times how far away he is from being king. Like number
Makes
of
sense.
people in succession. And I think, and it keeps happening in book 2 that like people die or such that Ambrose gets bumped up. I think he's only like 10 people away from being king.
Makes
See.
sense.
So I could absolutely see it being Ambrose, and that'd be very satisfactory.
Well, and it would make sense because right now, even though he's like sneaking in places, this and that, you don't see him as like a cold-blooded killer. So it'd be like, okay, why would he want to kill a king? So if
Right.
it's
Like,
Ambrose, it makes sense.
and you also have to think like we obviously don't see any of his friends at the inn or living there. They don't know where he is. We don't see Dinah. And he just mentions, Bast has seen her. But maybe Ambrose did something that he killed Dinah. And that's
Well, because
why,
who's the angel that he killed?
What do you mean?
Because isn't there a story that he killed like an angel, or was that just kind of the mythology?
It could have been one of the lies that he spread himself.
I think the story is the lie he spread himself.
I don't think
he's not actually a king killer. He's like, actually, I just have this like leaf blower here, and that's how I'm able to name the wind.
It turns out that like Quoth was a totally different person. This is really just an innkeeper that was bored.
No, at the end, it turns out this was Ambrose. He killed him.
You never know.
How mad would the fans be if that's what it turned out to be?
I mean, half of them would just be glad that we got something.
Yeah, no, I've seen reviews of the third one on Goodreads because obviously it's not out, and people are just like, "I've been waiting for 10 years. Like, what the hell is this 1 star?"
Yeah,
like,
I love when people do reviews before a book's even out.
Oh yeah. Also, like, I get it; it's a long time, but like we talked about, Game of Thrones has been in. Who knows? I actually don't think that one will ever get finished. This one, a lot of people I know think might not get finished, and then like Steve Alton has one that's been in production for like
So,
10 years. So
the most recent from this, Brandon Sanderson, who's actually friends with Patrick Rothfuss, he mentioned within the past couple of months that it's still definitely coming and that it's not too far away. That he believes it'll be out before too long, but that he very much expects it to be like a Greek tragedy, that there's no way it ends except in tears.
I can see that.
Okay, so let's see. It does say here, somebody who read it they said they read it the sixth time and noticed at the beginning before Quoth starts telling his story that Devin looks at Quoth and thinks, so that's the face of someone who has killed an angel. I don't know. I think after looking at it, I think a lot of whatever happens that breaks Quoth basically is going to have to do with Ari.
is that because of the other book?
I mean that too, but just the fact that he's like very like attached to her, you know, and she could be the angel because all right, so if he thinks that's the face of somebody who killed an angel, what could be the real story behind it that it gets interpreted as an angel? Do you know what I mean?
One, do we think, I mean, maybe in book 2, but do you think he actually ends up with Dana or kind of in a relationship?
I think going off of what we just said, I imagine it will be a situation where Ambrose kills Denna, and that's why he kills
Ambrose ends up with her. And that's why he killed him.
I just know that she's not at the end.
Cool.
Yeah, but at the same time,
the end with him, so
there's people that know him, right?
They know of him. That person that showed up that they convinced was drunk or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they.
Well, and Chronicler was sent there
perform.
by somebody, right?
Chronicler was sent there by Scarpy, the guy who told the story where he got arrested.
Yeah.
So he made it out alive, apparently.
At least
I thought Chronicler was sent there by Bast himself.
No, Bast took advantage of him being there. So Bast basically was leaving little hints and clues to get somebody to piece together that they had seen, like to rumors.
That's what I mean. Bast is the one that got
he wanted
there by leaving the breadcrumbs.
Well, so Scarpy heard about those and basically sent Chronicler to go find out what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So Bast wanted somebody there to do exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
So orchestrated by Bast, but he wasn't the one who directly summoned him or sent for him.
And then at the end, Bast kills him.
It could be. I mean, especially after the way book 2 ends.
See.
So all right, let's stop talking about book 2 here. Let's continue.
Here's a question, David. Obviously, your next book pick is going to be a while off. Are you ever going to revisit this for the Society main characters like book 2?
Oh, we totally could. I wouldn't mind doing the next one like in a few months or something if you guys wanted to.
Okay.
But
I was actually thinking if the third one gets a release date like announced soon,
right?
Like if it's say like holiday 2025 or something like that, I wouldn't mind doing a video talking about the entire series.
Oh yeah, we could do a deep dive once it's all together. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he has confirmed that his plans, at least right now, are to continue writing in this world after book 3, but it's not necessarily, it's not Quoth's story necessarily. So he could still be even involved, but it's not like his story from his point of view kind of
just
thing.
Just fleshing out the world with other people.
Right.
Kind of like what Star Wars had originally wanted to do with their spinoffs.
So something that I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you guys picked up on this because it took me a couple readings to get it. Do you remember when the fire happens and Quoth is in there later talking to Kilvin about, like what happened? And he says like a Cyru or whatever phrase that, and Quoth is like, every 7 years, like, what does Coat mean? And Coat means disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very telling that Quoth took the name Disaster as his name, basically.
I do vaguely remember that. Yep.
Yeah. So he very much blames himself for everything that has happened, like however it comes about.
I mean, like we've been talking, even not like a big disaster, But even in this book, there's a lot of little disasters that you're like, oh, that was probably his fault.
Oh yeah.
Even going back to the Dracus where it goes into town.
If they would have
Because
just
they
left it
gotta-
alone, it probably never would have come anywhere near the town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't involved, if they weren't out there, if they weren't trying to, yeah, I totally agree with that. There's a lot of things that he fixes, but it's because he caused it to begin with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or at least helps it along when it didn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, it doesn't seem like whatever has happened is due to the Chandrian. I don't know if he takes care of them. I feel like he has to have an encounter with them by the end.
He has to have some payoff.
He has to have some
He has to
payoff.
fight them. He's got to
Like they're the big bad. It's
has
even
to
like
have-
they're in the dark. Like the one guy's like the shadows. You can't really see who he is and stuff. And he
Exactly, yeah.
they killed his parents. I mean, feels like he has.
You have to have a payoff. It'd be like having a Batman story with no Joker.
No, it'd be like Joe Chill killed Batman's parents, and then he just didn't go to Jelligoth scot-free.
He just disappeared.
It's just you never hear about him again. It'd be like you guys aren't anime fans. Never mind. I was gonna say it'd be.
But maybe our
like,
viewers are, Nick.
Okay. Well, for the viewers, hot take: it could be like any other arc in the Jujutsu Kaisen series. There's never any payoff.
That sucks.
It's. I don't like Jujutsu Kaisen, not because the stories are bad. The stories are kind of cool, but the fan base sucks. And then again, the stories don't ever pay off. They start a lot of arcs and then never pay them off.
So, something else that I think is very cool. I don't know if you guys really looked into this since y'all have been really looking at other stuff beyond the book. At one point, pretty recently, within the past like 5 years or so, this was slated to be a movie.
I did do a little bit of research. It was slated to be a movie. Then it was talked about doing like a long series, kind of like Game of Thrones.
So
and then
the series was actually not going to be Quoth's story.
Oh, really?
They were going to have a series and a movie. The series, from what we've been able to gather of what it was going to be about, was actually going to be the story of his parents.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
And they're like life as troopers and going around, and then I guess the beginnings maybe of like gathering up the Chandrian story or whatnot that he was going to sing about type thing. And the movie was, of course, going to be big, huge budget from Lionsgate, like all three movies, and the music was all going to be done by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
He was already signed on to do it, and he was super excited.
So what happened?
According to Lin-Manuel
apart.
Miranda, they couldn't nail it down. They just couldn't quite get the feel of it right.
Like it had to be, because you see how important music and everything is in this, and telling the story. Like it's a lot of little pieces, so they just couldn't put it all together. And personally, I think they were a little concerned that they might run into a situation like Game of Thrones, where the last book didn't come out. So
I mean, but I felt like he did that on purpose.
Well, I just don't think that. I think that they wanted to avoid that, and they want the story to be complete before they commit to doing big time movies and stuff based on it.
Yeah.
But they were developing a TV series, the movies, and a standalone video game series based on the world.
Yep.
Video games would be cool. Would it'd be like what, free roam, like first person, like just
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep, going to the university and stuff.
That'd be fun.
So I think that's all still possible, especially if the third book does as well as it could. If it's good, if he nails it, then I think they're like, yeah, let's do it. But I think they want to know the ending before they commit to telling the story.
Yep.
Yeah, because they don't want to go, like you said, Game of Thrones, where they're like,
Right.
we'll make up the ending, and then they made
And
it
then
the
it
worst
sucked.
ending.
So I'm excited to see if that all comes back into play after the next book.
Well, who would you cast?
Go ahead, Nick. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say, in the one video I heard that talked about all of this stuff about the TV show and the movies, I don't know if it was from a studio or not, but I heard that there was talks of an animated show, like there was a fan animation.
There was talks of it possibly being animated as well. I think it hadn't been totally dismissed. I think people really wanted it live action, but it was still on the table as a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a fan animation out there of the.
I've seen it. It's really good.
Yeah, of the scene where he his
where he
lute
calls the
breaks.
wind and yep, it's really good. I like it.
It's really good.
For a fan made thing, it's awesome. I've
Yeah.
also heard there's this girl, I don't remember who it was, but she did a version on the lute of like one of the songs he performs. Absolutely gorgeous.
I did not see that one.
It's
I was
yeah, it's
thinking about
really
that. I
good.
was thinking about that though as a musician. I was like, I wonder how this would translate to actual music.
I think
As I was reading the book.
Lin-Manuel Miranda would have been a very good choice for translating this because he seems to get music. So I've never really heard him though in that genre because he does kind of skew towards the more R&B side, you know, and things like that with what he does, which is fantastic, but it wouldn't fit for this. It would have to be a very different type of music than what I think we've heard from him. But he did a great job with like Moana, so I think he could adapt.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much we could talk about this, but I think that it's hard to talk about it without having a complete story.
Was there anything about this book that disappointed you or irritated you?
I wouldn't say irritated or disappointed. I think I wish there would have been some more answers. Like it did tell a story, but I don't feel like it was a complete by itself story. Excuse me. It's very much part 1 of 3. It does a beautiful setup. It makes me interested. It gets me very invested, but it doesn't give me any solid answers about literally anything. It leaves it for it's, you know, because at least like in Star Wars, New Hope, they still blew up the Death Star. They still, you know, there was a story encapsulated in there. The best they had in this one was the ending part with the dragon and everything. Like that was a good chunk of the book that you could say that was like the big moments, but it doesn't really affect anything of the rest of his overall story. This was more just a piece of his legend.
I mean, for me personally, outside of that big moment, there's not a lot of action, period.
No, it's not an action book at all.
No,
it's more
that's
intellectual and creative.
That's what for me like kind of drew me back from it, because when I think of fantasy, I think of like big action. I think of like Lord of the Rings.
That's what I was saying. This is very much a different type of.
It's different. It's definitely different.
Fantasy. Yeah, it's a different part of fantasy. It's more like, hey, here's an everyday life in a fantasy world. You know, it's like, well, we get that they were doing all the wars and stuff, but what about the baker? You know,
it was like, for me, it felt like Game of Thrones from like the peasants' point of view.
Almost. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but I do like that it feels a little more modern still than Game of Thrones. Like how they have like glass items and stuff from the fishery and you know, it's a little more modern feel on things, which I appreciated.
And even then, going off of the sympathy lamps, like,
yeah, almost like pseudo electricity.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I compared it to like alchemy.
Yeah, I think it did a very good job of towing that line without being anachronistic, where you're like, that doesn't make sense. Like they even have plumbing close to the university, like. But yeah, no, I think it's a beautiful beginning. It's a great start of a trilogy. Like I said, I really love the next one even more than this one, and I hope with all my heart that he brings it home with a stellar book 3 and gives us the story we deserve. But we're just gonna have to hang in there like the millions of other people waiting.
Well, David, what's your rating?
I'm gonna say a 9 out of 10. It's not a perfect book. I think it's a little slow in the beginnings. Rereading it, I do have a more of an appreciation for those stories at the beginning and stuff, that kind of slower period. So I appreciate it. I'm glad it's there. It's just, again, any book that I can't get into till after like 100 pages before it really gets going is going to get knocked off at least a couple. So I would say a low 9 is probably where I put this one. Maybe even a high 8. So 8.5 to 9 is probably what I'd say for this one.
Keegan, what's your rating?
I was going to wait till after you, Nick.
I don't want to follow. I don't want to be the one that follows David, man.
No, I'll give it.
David loves this book.
No, I mean, so for me, I'm not a big fantasy guy, but I did enjoy it once we got past a certain part, and I think that's mainly what Doc said. I think if that was handled a little bit differently, it would be higher. And I also think my rating could change based off of book 2, because
I think mine did too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like you said, And I started to realize this the more and more I got. Like at one point, I was like, man, I have like barely anything less left, and there's so much to go on. So I would say right now, a 7.5, 8 could change, could go up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm rating it based on having more because it's more like you're rating part of a story instead of an entire story.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like I said, it'll go up. I don't see it going down because of book 2.
I mean, but if he fucking ruins it in book 3, I might
Book
come back
3.
and be like, no, Name of the Wind 2.
The King Killer Chronicles, absolute garbage.
It's just a bunch of toilet paper.
There we go.
I got your sympathy right here.
Yes, yeah, I feel like we'll get hopefully something good. I know a lot of people are starting to lose hope we'll get anything.
I mean, like you said, I have higher hope that Rothfuss is going to finish this than I do that George R.R. Martin's ever going to finish Game of Thrones.
Hey, we got Dire Wolves before we got that book, so you know
Yeah,
what
right.
I'm
They
talking-
literally brought back an extinct animal before he finished these books.
And it's so funny too because like George R.R. Martin has come out and said that the reason why he's struggling to finish the Game of Thrones is because he killed off a certain character that's integral to the story, and it's like, dude, stop killing off every single one of your characters. Then, like, just take it easy.
I mean, we're not reviewing those books, so I'm not going to go too into this. But I feel like at
No.
one point he just started being like, "Who can I kill now? How do we shock him? Who do we kill?
I mean,
Let's kill,
that's even
let's kill that one."
the way with the Game of Thrones show. Like
Yeah.
I remember before I got into the show, I would talk to my dad, and he's like, "Don't get it attached to a single character."
Yeah, because it's like every episode, it's like, who's dying today?
It's like, oh yeah, I like that character. Oh, his head's off. Oh, cool. I get that.
So much for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually influenced a lot of people now because I've seen so many books where it's like, how many people can we kill? And it feels like they're just like trying to do that Game of Thrones trope. Like at least with Game of Thrones, it kind of made sense, you know.
Like, all right, like
Game of
as a
Thrones
writer,
drove the story.
as a writer myself, I do fully believe in the saying "kill your darlings," that you can't be afraid to lose characters if the story calls for it, and sometimes it's necessary to properly raise stakes or to be serious in what you're doing,
or to have an emotional payoff. Like there's reasons to do
but
it.
there has to be a reason. You should never kill a character just for shock. It should never be a like, oh, he's dead,
ratings, baby.
like
Ratings,
dumb.
give me the money.
Because like the biggest shock, of course, in book 1 is that Ned Stark gets killed at the end because he was set up as the main character. Like up until then, you think this is a story about Ned Stark and how he eventually overcomes everything to become king. Like that's what you think it's gonna be.
Honestly, I want to say even now they use the image of Ned Stark on the Iron Throne for like the title screen.
Exactly.
On Game of Thrones,
so
on,
that's
like,
what you
HBO
think.
Max.
And then he's killed near the very end and near the first season, near the end of the first book, and you're like, oh, like it's a shock. But it propels literally the entire rest of the saga.
Yeah,
like
it serves
all
a
of
purpose.
it
serves
is off
a
of
purpose.
him. Right. If you're gonna do that, I'm all for it. Do a shocking death. That's fine, as long as it makes sense and it adds to the story.
Spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen Game of Thrones or read it. Or
at this point, it's over a decade. I'm sorry,
dude.
spoilers.
Spoilers. I'm just trying to save face. Okay, spoilers.
Wait, hold on. Non-spoilers. All right, now tell all the spoilers, David. Red Wedding.
Rosebud is a sled.
So yeah, I just think
the
again,
Red Wedding. That's a bigger spoiler.
Like that's a series that it definitely, like I said, it took me 2 or 3 tries to actually start continue reading it. It's not. I don't like the style of writing as much, and I think he goes on way too much of stupid stuff. Like every meal they have, I don't need to know every component on that plate.
I wouldn't mind reading. I wouldn't mind reading I wouldn't mind reading those books just for the sake of saying I actually did it. You know.
Well, you got plenty of time before they end, so.
I understand that, but yeah, I'm not in any hurry
Nick,
right now.
You don't know what our book of the month's gonna be this month.
Oh God.
Well, first of all,
I haven't even given my rating. Okay, so stop. Take a seat back there. Okay, spoiler owl. Anyway, for me, I'm probably gonna be the lowest. I thought, again, there's a lot of this book for me that just dragged on a little too much. So, for me, I'm gonna say 6.5 out of 10 for me. and that could change. Like I enjoyed this talk about this book a lot more than I enjoyed reading the book. Okay, I enjoyed talking about it with you guys, especially David, since he's a fan of the series. David, you've made me want to read the next book in the series, but like the videos I saw, like the one guy I saw talk about who really loved it, he said he ended his video saying that he wants the Name of the Wind to be a school material book. Like he wants it to be read in schools, which
That's
I
a
don't.
little intense.
It's a
I think
really intense.
Brendan read his in school.
It's
I
really
mean,
intense.
I can
I don't.
see if you're taking maybe a specialized course, like if you're doing a creative writing course or fantasy like genre,
Yep. Yep.
sure, it's a good example for that. But just like a basic English class, I would not say
No.
that.
Yeah, like college
No.
reading and writing. Sure.
Sure, yeah.
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 A
Yeah.
novelist, like, or an
Not
elective
a.
class, absolutely. But a required reading for like everybody to graduate, no,
No.
no.
No. Absolutely not. No, but like David, you are a fan of the series, and I can feel your passion when you're talking about it. So you have made me want to pick up the second book.
Well, thank you.
Although from what I've heard, it's not as there are mixed feelings about it.
Oh
Some
no,
people,
the
some people
second
say
book
it's.
gets very decisive. Yeah,
Some people say it's not as good as the first. Some people, like you
yeah.
just said, you liked it more.
It depends on what you like. I like the concept of just going out having adventures kind of thing. I
Mhm.
wanted to see more of the world and have him in other situations and environments, and it does a lot of that.
Mhm.
If you're more a fan of like the academia aspect of things and the like, typical learning school wizardry type stuff and all that, like, no. And if you're looking for solutions to like the Chandrian thing, no, you're not gonna like it.
That's the one part of it for book one I did not like because
Um,
the reason why I didn't like it is because I'm used to because a lot of it, especially with the university, it felt like it was trying to be that Harry Potter-esque kind of story.
you
So
can
it was like,
tell that Rothfuss liked Harry Potter. Like there had to be
yes,
some influence.
Yeah, like
yes,
it's a mix of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings /
It
real
felt it
history.
felt like an adult Harry Potter in some parts,
yep,
Yeah.
which
absolutely.
is
So like,
fine. I'm okay with that, but that's how I felt.
yeah, so like for me, I'm used to like one book having one main creature or one main bad guy, and it's dealt with by the end of that book.
Right. Simpler stories.
But that's
Yeah,
not the
it
case
doesn't
here.
happen in that, and it doesn't happen in this next one, but things get a lot more convoluted.
So
Like we bring in like he literally goes into the Fey realm for a while.
okay, so
Like it gets wild.
let me tell you something then, and you can determine what you think. If I'll like the second book or if I won't. I'm a bigger fan of Lord of the Rings than I am of Harry Potter.
It goes more Lord of the Rings than Harry Potter, I would say, because it's so much more like if you're have you read all the Harry Potter books?
No, I have not read a single one. I've only watched the movies.
Okay, so it's kind of like the second book, like the one you just read was kind of like Harry Potter 1 and 2, showing you the world, showing things, setting things up. Now we're getting more into books like 3 and 4 where he goes into Hogsmeade, like the Wizarding Village, where he goes to the Quidditch World Cup, where he's seeing the wider wizarding world and not just his school and his life. It gets tied up more in like other kingdoms, other places that he goes, and he's going on adventures with people that you haven't met that are like mercenaries, that are, different people, hunters, tracker, things outside of the school that have nothing to do with the university at all.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
basically finding out that the information he needs to accomplish what he wants with the Chandrian and everything in the Amir, he can't discover at the school.
Okay.
So he's taking opportunities to leave to go do other things to hopefully further finding out information in other places is kind of the premise of that one.
Okay.
But it's still there. A good chunk of the book is still in there. Like Eladin starts teaching him naming. Part of that taking a class, part of that is all in the book. He's doing more artificing, and eventually he makes his way back to the university at the end of the book. So it is still in play. It's still the foundation that we've built on is still there. The characters are all still great. Lots of stuff happens. Ambrose is still a dick. Like lots of good stuff happening there, but at least half the book is completely different people in completely different places.
Okay. Alrighty.
So if you like it more, like you said you wanted more actiony, it's definitely more stuff happens. It's not
Sounds
just
good.
It's just going to classes and going into town and talking.
I mean,
It adds
honestly,
in.
how spoilery for book 2 are the spinoffs? Like, can you read those without book 2 being spoiled, or do
You
you need
could
to
read. You can read the Bast one, the Lightning Tree.
Okay.
You could read that whenever, because that's actually the novella version that's out is actually an expanded short story that Patrick Rothfuss wrote for a compendium that was in a series by George R.R. Martin. It was called Rogues, and it was a bunch of famous fantasy authors that wrote small short stories in their world about a rogue. So Patrick Rothfuss decided to do it about Bast because he was like a roguish kind of guy. So it's kind of a different take on rogue. And it was like a day in his life of like, chasing down pretty girls in the village, making silly deals with kids, like it's cute. It's a good story. It adds to the world. It adds flavor. It's nothing essential, but
right.
it's interesting. It's like, okay, like it's amusing. It's worth reading. So that one is good. You can read that and not have any spoilers. Nothing at all. If anything, I believe Lightning Tree takes place before Chronicler would have been there.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of a prequel-ish. It's just like a day of Bast's life before the story starts getting told.
Yeah,
Okay.
I felt like I want to read them all, but I figure at some point we'll probably come back.
Yeah, I would say that one you can read if you want to now. I think it actually came out before book 2, so it would even be in chronological order. But I would wait on the Slow Regard of Silent Things, or whatever it's called, the one that's Ari's. I would wait on that one because that one might be a little more spoilery of things. Not a lot, but you'll understand it more and have a better appreciation if you've read through book 2 about her.
Gotcha. So Keegan, now that we've all given our
Hold on, wait a minute. Wait, I'm getting. Apparently, we do have one more opinion to take into account. It seems our favorite wizard / astronaut, Sky Rizzy, has sent along his thoughts on this book. Is that true, Keegan?
Did he send it to you, or did he just share it with Keegan?
Keegan has it.
He said, I didn't read the book. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I didn't read it, but it sounded stupid, so I say it's stupid.
No, Nolan said he would give it 8.8 out of 10. He likes the format of the story in a story kind of way, how it's kind of like
the framing.
Yeah, the framing. And he says it scratches the fantasy itch, and he definitely would want to read the rest of the books in the series. He said if you like fantasy or magic or anything of that nature, I'd give it a read.
8.8, I think it's the highest he's given a book, even his own recommendation.
Yeah. He also said he wants a sick-ass nickname like King Killer.
We'll have to work on that.
He has one.
King Killer Sky Rizzy.
Wizard Sky Rizzy.
He's a wizard knot.
Wizard Sky Rizzy. All right, what's our next book there, Keegan?
So yes, and then maybe next time we'll touch on Grayson. Can maybe fill us in at some point on what he thought if he wants to share, because I think he did read it, but unfortunately he was unable to join us tonight. But Grayson is actually going to be picking our next book, correct?
I mean, I was just staring at my background. Did you want me to say something? No, I'm just kidding.
What is your
this was our
background,
last book. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
No, my background's the dragon.
The dragon. It's the scene where over here on the
other
side.
Gotcha. Yep.
But
it's also hold on real quick before you announce the next one. It is wild to me in the framing that like demon thing came in that guy's body and just fucking kills that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like the end of this book in like the present day, that went wild.
That went unexpectedly dark for me. Yeah, I was not expecting that.
That went hard.
plus like just how Bast it acts at the end of it, where he's like threatening and his eyes are all blue, and you're like, what's going on?
Again. So that was my. I would think that was why I am even remotely intrigued for the next book, because I loved that little interaction at the very end between Chronicler and Bast.
Yeah, he basically makes it a point in the next book of saying several times, like making sure Chronicler knows, like, I own you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Keegan, what's our next book?
The Mating Rituals of Dracus. Is that what it was called?
the mating habitat, or yeah.
It was,
Can you please,
it's a book
for the love of God, Can you just reveal it, please? I need to play. I need to beat Bloodborne tonight because it's the final
Okay, we
night of
won't talk
Return to
about how
Yarnum.
I thought it was a blue tongue
Return to
skink. We'll
Yarnum.
talk about the book.
God.
We'll talk about the book. Okay. The next book is going to be Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. This one was recommended by Grayson. I have not read it, so it's new to me. It looks possibly like another fantasy one. We'll find out. Maybe we'll talk to him at some point, maybe on the Daredevil things.
It looks like the beginning of a series.
It's a trilogy as well. So we got a couple trilogies that we've started
I
here.
see it. Half a King, Shattered Sea #1.
Yeah. So yeah, join us next
Originally
month.
published in 2014.
Maybe this one's actually complete then.
It looks like it because you can buy the trilogy. It looked like so.
Oh yeah, it looks like it's a young adult. Oh, this shouldn't be bad. It's only 400 pages.
That's not
Yeah.
bad at all.
So join us early May. We'll be talking that one.
Let's just do it tomorrow. We can read it tonight, right, guys? Let's go.
Nope, not happening. Shut up, David.
But yeah, if you guys like this, we'll also be doing our Daredevil stuff. We're enjoying that one. I'm excited to see where that goes. David, any final words for the viewers before we sign off?
No, just if you're into fantasy stuff and want something interesting, definitely recommend this book. As we've definitely made clear very many times, it is the first of 3, so not a complete story on its own, but it seems to be building to something really cool. So give it a shot if you need something to read, and it'll last you a little bit. It's got some length on it, but otherwise, jump into this Half a King and join us next month, and we can all talk about it together. Our Discord is a great place if you want to talk about any of these books. We're going to have a link below, so you can check that out as well. And come in there. We talk about Name of the Wind. We can talk about Midnight Library, anything we've already read. Or if you have recommendations of what to read next, we could definitely do a month where we're doing a viewer rec or something to read. We might even ask you on the show. Who knows? So, yeah, jump in there, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, and we might be doing a live show here where you can actually talk to Nick here and know how to experience books better.
Stop it.
So stay tuned. We'll be back.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna go with the live reaction to